Were the Americans on the moon? For some people, this question has been closed for a long time. Hundreds of hours of film footage shot on the moon seem as if they should leave no doubt. But for others, for another part of the audience of the American lunar program, it is not so unambiguous. At least because the Apollo program had not even finished in 1972, when in 1971, 1 year before its closure, Hollywood itself mocked it plainly and directly in Diamonds Are Forever with the brilliant Sean Connery. Not with hints like Capricorn 1 in 1977. In that film, the plot is that the spacecraft's life support system has defects that cannot be fixed. The crew will inevitably die before reaching Mars. And so, in order to not upset the public, every stage of the flight is filmed on NASA sound stages. That was also a hint, including a hint at the American lunar program, at how it could be filmed on Earth. Even more openly, Hollywood spoke in the cult film Interstellar from 2014.
It's an old federal textbook. We've replaced them with the corrected versions.
Corrected.
Explaining how the Apollo missions were fake to bankrupt the Soviet Union.
You don't believe we went to the moon?
I believe it was a brilliant piece of propaganda that the Soviets bankrupted themselves, pouring resources into rockets and other useless machines.
Cooper's dialogue with his daughter's teacher is not connected to the storyline of the script at all, and yet it was inserted into the film for some reason. So, were the Americans on the moon or not? The answer has long been lying on the surface of the moon. Let us start with the obvious. During the Apollo program, 6 descent stages of lunar modules should have remained on the moon. These are large structures, large enough to be noticeable when observed from lunar orbit. The distance between the landing legs of the descent stage is about 31 feet, that is almost 9.5 meters, the size of a small house. In addition, 3 lunar rovers should have remained on the moon, about 3 meters long each. It is impossible to confuse them with natural terrain. A simple question arises. Can all of this be seen from lunar orbit? Today, the surfaces of planets are photographed by automatic satellites with high-resolution cameras. For comparison, from an altitude of about 620 kilometers above Earth, modern satellites calmly distinguish individual cars that are parked separately. You can determine the body type of the car and even its color. But the moon has one important advantage compared with Earth. The moon has no atmosphere. This means that a lunar satellite can fly in a very low orbit, on the order of 20 kilometers above the surface. Compared with Earth, the difference is 30 times. In addition, the absence of an atmosphere and a lower orbital speed should produce even sharper images, sharper also by about 30 times. So then the next question arises, what exactly did NASA show us? These images of the lunar surface were taken from an orbit of about 22 kilometers, with a claimed resolution of only 25 centimeters per pixel. For comparison, Earth satellites already reached 50 centimeters per pixel by the late 2000s from an altitude of 620 kilometers. So 50 centimeters divided by 30 gives 17 millimeters per pixel. That is what the resolution should be for lunar images from an altitude of 22 kilometers. What is 17 millimeters per pixel? What kind of quality is that? I will show you now. This is a normal image of a rover at a resolution of 300 dots per inch, which is the standard resolution for high-quality color printing. And this is 200 dots, but not per inch. 200 dots across the entire rover image. We take 3.5 meters and divide it by 17 millimeters, the resolution per point for a lunar satellite, and we get 200 pixels for an image of the rover from 20 kilometers. A perfectly recognizable image. The only difference is that from a satellite, the view will not be from the side, but from above. Now let us look at what NASA's lunar satellite produced in reality. Even the outline of the rover is difficult to recognize, not to mention individual details. Why did NASA make these images at such a low resolution, 25 centimeters per pixel, although they could have made them 10 times higher quality? I have only one answer to that question. There are no American descent stages of 6 lunar modules and no 3 rovers on the moon. This is ordinary Photoshop, and it gives itself away completely through fatal design blunders. 100% black color, solid and without noise, appears only around or near the descent stages and the rovers. In no crater is there such a black shadow, and even around an object from which it supposedly falls, without transitions and without noise. Everywhere else there is a normal gradient, texture, and the noise of the camera sensor. Even the deepest craters are shown as a black gradient, and always with noise. But here there is a sharp black collapse, as if it is a hole in the image. This is a typical mistake of not very good designers who manually add shadows to the same manually drawn objects. And what are these dark spots? If we assume it is the shadow of some object, then where is the object itself? Where is the bright part of this darkening, which always accompanies any irregularity, a rise or a meteorite crater, with light and shadow and a gradient transition? Here, there is simply a dark spot on a relatively flat surface. It feels as if someone poured black graphite powder on the moon. Maybe the astronauts trampled the top layer of lunar soil with their feet and the rover wheels, and under it the soil turned out to be darker? But no, in reality, everything is exactly the opposite. This scientific paper says that because of so-called space weathering, the reflective ability of the upper layer of lunar regolith is destroyed, which makes it darker, so to speak, more suntanned. That means trampling the upper layer would lead to a brightening of that area, not to its darkening. But the designer was not told about this research by Chinese scientists. Here is what the picture should actually look like after a lunar landing, using the Chinese Lunar Automatic Station Chang'e 3 with the rover U2, which translates to Yade Rabbit. On the left is an image of the place where it was supposed to land, and on the right it has already landed, and the jet of gases from its engine brightened the landing area, that is, the moon landing area, by blowing away the upper darker layer of regolith. The joke is that these images were made by the same American lunar satellite that filmed all American missions on the moon, after which these images were published in 2011, 2012 on various resources, including Wikipedia. But in 2013, the Chinese launched their unmanned mission to the moon and spoiled this whole show for the Americans with the darkening and brightening of the lunar surface near lunar modules. Deception is the most important instrument of controlling society since biblical times, which is exactly what I talk about in my books. That is all for today. Thank you for your subscriptions, likes, and comments. All the best, and see you again soon. This was Alexander Tomansky.